Rock and roll. Kia ora, everybody. What's up? Welcome to Robett Live. Friday, New Zealand. Thursday, Arvo here. The Raiders are now 2-1. Not too happy about that, but we're going to get it up there. On today's show, we've got a whole bunch of rad weapons. Obviously, the regulars, Cassie Roma and Holly Bennett. But I want to start off, kicking off with the bro, Adam Blair. How are you, mate?
I'm good, brother. What's happening?
Dude, you're in, we were talking about it before. So day 4, you're in a hotel room, locked down with just you and the wife. What's been going on?
Yeah.
Plus the kids. We forgot the kids.
So nothing's going on. Mate. It's all right. We're just doing our part and sticking to all the protocols and getting it all done. And hopefully in whatever days left, we get home and get back to our own space because we've been away for a while now.
Yeah. I was maybe a kickoff point. I was like, how's the... before a big moment or a big test or something, you'll switch your headspace into what you'll mentally go to. When you got on a plane from Aussie back to New Zealand, knowing you're going to be in a room for 2 weeks, did you have a similar mindset of how you knew you'd have to probably approach it? Because the stages you're going to go through?
Yeah, that was much really the hardest thing is we kind of knew 2 weeks out before the season was finished that we were coming home and we had to do ISO and again, the wife and I were thinking, what can we do every hour or every 2 hours where we can keep ourselves busy or keep the kids busy and as well as my wife's trying to get her jobs done and I'm trying to do some study as well. But then you're trying to give time for the kids and, play games or do some arts and craft, which we have been doing. So it was more about trying to have a little bit of a normal routine, but it's quite hard.
Yeah, it's it's different. It's not like you're at the house and you've got the backyard and stuff. I guess if it's a hotel room, how much movement do you actually have? Like, can you go for walks and shit? Like, is it like in the flipping room for 2 weeks?
Yeah, no, I think we're really lucky. Obviously, I've never done one of these ones before, but and you've seen a lot of other people's stays and how they've gone about it. But here we're at the Crown, and there's a couple or 4 hours a day where you can block out an area like 12 people at a time to go for a walk, and there's a little car park down below us, which is it's like an L shape, and you just do that all for 40 minutes. So you got that. Plus, I think we're quite lucky. We've got this whole floor to just our team or whoever came home with us. So walking up and down the hallway is not too bad at the moment because, as well as obviously making sure that we keep apart from each other, but it's not too bad because we can I walk up and down. So my kids are just flying up and down the hallway at the moment.
At least it's like locked in and safe. So I was gonna ask, you've just finished how long? 15 years was it? How
15 years this year. Yeah, 15 years this year.
So you woke up you came in. So this is day 4. You woke up on say Monday or Monday. You woke up and you're no longer getting tackled by flipping 120 kg rigs. How's your body feeling and how's your headspace knowing that you won't be going through that much physical brutality for the next, hopefully, ever again?
Yeah, to be honest, it's must be one of the toughest decisions to make in my whole life. Just because you say the word and then it's all done. And that takes seconds, you know what I mean? After a lifetime of putting so much, I guess, effort and sacrifices and dedication into a job, it's gone in seconds. So it was a tough moment for myself and my wife, just being able to sit there with each other and say, oh, let's just, it's done now. And I'm like, oh, no, it's not. And then I'm like, yes, it's done now. And then it's done, you know what I mean? So,
is it a body or a mind thing?
It's more like because I feel good and my body's I've been really blessed over the 15 years that I've had maybe one major injury in my whole career, which allowed me to play so many games. I still felt fresh in the body, fresh in the mind, and that was the toughest decision because I felt that way. But at the end of the day, I've done everything I could do, and for a New Zealand Kiwi player. For me, it wasn't about breaking records or going out there and playing as many games. It was just going out there to have fun with my teammates. And, now I've just gone, all right, it's done. I've come home. It still hasn't really sunk in yet, but, I wake up when I get into the hotel, I wake up Monday morning and, I've got a bit of a sore back, so I'm jumping on the foam roll. I'm thinking, I don't even need to be doing this anymore. Like I'm still stretching my hammies. I'm like, do I need? It's just that's just the norm. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna miss sport because I'm such a competitor and I love doing it. So I don't know when that's gonna leave me. And I'm most probably already talking to my friends, my wife, about like playing some sports or coaching the kids, just because I need to be around it, and trying to make teams for all my friends so that we can play some sport, because I don't know how I'm just gonna give it up just like that.
Yeah, it's I've never played rugby league or any of that. As I was more on the snowboard sort of circle, so definitely different sort of buzz. But the headspace to switch mentally to something that's not that full time, it's a lot, and it becomes kind of that thing of, I guess. How old were you when you first started playing? Like full young buck, what, 5, 6 or something?
Well, because I played union growing up as a kid, so I only just learned the game of rugby league at the age of 16 when I moved to Australia. So, but like rugby union all the way up, so competitive the whole time, and then 16.
Yeah, it's how does your? It's going to be just a big reset mentally when your life has been this one thing. Do you feel that you've been defined so far by what you did, not who you are?
I tried to make sure it wasn't going to, it gets that way because everyone through our sport, you are judged on your performances week in, week out. It's not on who you are as a person. And I guess you cop a lot of criticism, and I have throughout my career. And a lot of times, because I'm the person I am, I don't say too much, because I think I'm really tough, and I just let it all slide, because I know that at the end of the day, if there's anyone that's going to change things, it's going to be myself. So I've always had my wife backing me in the background, saying, if someone says something about myself, she's always saying, hey, if you've ever met Adam, or if you want to meet Adam, don't be shy, give him a message on anything, go sit down and have a coffee, and then you might get to know him, instead of saying these things that are hurtful, that people hear that don't even know who he is. So I'm very lucky that, I'm pretty thick-skinned, and I've been around long enough. I know how the business works, but I'm grateful that I've got a wife that stands up for me in the background and does the things she does.
Yeah, dude, it's when you get that support from the number, it's good. I was just going to say, I'm not sure, but your laptop either keeps moving or your hand goes over the mic or something. It's getting a bit rustly, so just I don't know where the mic is, but no, it's all G. But it looked like the laptop was moving. No, I was gonna so on that, right? How long you been with wifey for?
We met 2008. Been married for, I think this will be our 9th year coming up.
What, you met at 8?
Oh, 2008. Sorry,
2008.
Yeah.
Oh, got you. Oh, good on you, man. How do you think wifey's gonna go now with you at home 90% of the time? You reckon she's gonna go batshit crazy, or she's gonna kick you out to make you do something?
Yeah, no, it'll be both. We've got 2 other boys, so she's in a household of boys. But she's always been a driven person and always had her career in the background, but it's always been put on hold, because every time we've moved somewhere, she's about to build her connections and get her job up and going, and I pack up and I say, let's go, we've got to move somewhere else. So the last couple of clubs I've signed for 4 years, and it's taken my wife about 3 years just to settle into the place, make friends, get some connections, try and get a job. And then I've gone, hey babe, we've got to get up and go. And she's like, oh really? I've just lost all my hard work that I've done. So it's like I've said it along throughout my career, is that she's always been there to support me. So when I made my decision, it was quite easy, because I knew that she had sacrificed so much for me, put her jobs aside so that she could go, and so that I could do my thing. So now it's about time she gets to do hers.
Good on you, man. So how long did you play in the game? 15?
15, yeah.
15 seasons. So if you're how old are you now? 35?
34.
34. So basically until you're 50, now it's your turn to return the favor.
Yeah.
Wherever she wants to go, forever.
Wherever she wants to go. And then that's the good thing about us, is that, for myself, home is wherever my family is, and that's my wife and my 2 kids. And I've been really good about that. But she's a home person, and if she wants to go home, then we'll go home. to where she wants
No,
to
good
be.
on you. It's props to you for acknowledging the sacrifices of a partner, especially, it's tough to move and shift and whatever. And, I've been through that and so many people have been through it. It's tricky when you've got those circles and bubbles, so especially when you try to form genuine relationships, then the next thing it's like, well, shit, next, and I got to start all over again, which can be kind of tricky, I get it. Props to her. I think you after this 2-week little lockdown too, mate, you're gonna have to get the grandparents to look after the kids, go take it to Fiji or do something, go away for a bit.
Go somewhere, just us two by ourselves. Far out.
Little camper van. There you go.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to forgive my ignorance. I don't know much about rugby league at all. I've got friends with it and whatever, but I am keen to really discuss when you woke up in February, thought what the season would be pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And then you had the bubble life of what existed. And now we're seeing different leagues around the world. Say with, the NBA have got their bubble lockdown in Florida, and there's, NFL trying to do bits and pieces. How drastic of a shift was it mentally to gear up for a season which didn't logistically operate like anything you would have ever expected? Talk me through that. I'm just really intrigued from an athlete's perspective of perception versus reality for how you approached the season of what you thought it would be to the realities of what it actually was.
So we start our season off. We played 2 rounds, and I think our second round is when everything started coming about the COVID and all the rules and stuff like that. And I think it wouldn't have been, we played our first game, and they said we got off the field, we got pumped 20-0, and before we could even sit down, we already had our CEO telling us that we could be going home because the country's going into lockdown. So we've quickly shifted aside our thoughts on the game, and we're all on our phone trying to get hold of our partners saying, hey, we might get stuck over here. And so they're panicking, we're panicking, and football's quickly pushed aside from that moment onwards. We make a bet, because it hadn't been confirmed that the country was going into lockdown, that we'll stay on for a game, maybe 2 games, and see how it goes. But if anything happens, we're just going to get on the plane and go home. But the whole time, which is the hardest thing, obviously I've been around the game long enough. It's quite, for young people and older guys that have been around, like older guys, you can kind of stay focused, and the younger guys were just, they were all over the place. All guys with families, myself included. It was quite hard to focus on rugby league, because in the back of our minds, we just wanted to get home and be with our families, because if we got locked out of the country, we didn't know how long that was going to be for. So we stay on and play one more game, and must be one of the hardest weeks, because I know everyone wanted to go home, but we had a job to do, and we got pumped again. And that was obviously with everything going on through the week. On every single day, everyone's on their phones checking on updates. Can we get home today? Can we get home tomorrow? And then trying to train, then trying to prepare yourself for a big game on the weekend was hard as a group, because I don't think everyone was committed. And we sat around a table, and we said, yeah, we're all in, and we're committed to stay on, and whatever happens, happens. But I think at that stage, I don't think everyone was committed.
The headspace of it, right? It's a different, because that's the hook, when you know that there's all these external pressures of real world shit, and your kids and where your grandparents are at, and the bubbles, and like, wait a second, I can't get to my home country. Wait a second, and it's all right. Now I got to go train. Shit, I got a game. Like and I'm interested that verbally there was commitment to the team, but mentally they actually weren't. Some weren't checked in the same way. And do you think it was an age thing, or it was they didn't understand the? What do you think
I think everyone just wanted to get home, and it was, it's hard to process when there's things going on every single day that the country's going to go into lockdown. We can't get out of here, and everyone just wants to get out. Like, so I can't speak for the other boys on what their thoughts were, but I know myself that, I wanted to go home, but I tried to stay focused and be in the moment. It's because I was obviously one of the older guys and one of the leaders, so staying focused for them was most probably my priority. But at the same time, in the back subconsciously, I was thinking, come on, please just tell us we got to go home. Like, call the game off, call the competition off, so we can get out of here.
So if they did that, just when it first went to lockdown, I was watching the game when the Mavs were playing. I forget who they're playing in the NBA, and it shot to when they decided on the court that it was the Jazz, I think, Mavs and the Jazz, and decided it was over. And you see Mark Cuban's face as he read it, just going, "Holy shit! Like it's flipping. The season's finished." NBA were a bit stuffed from the accounts that I've read. They needed to commit at least 70% of their season to hit the threshold to get their TV rights money deals.
Okay.
How did commerce play a role in? So say if they cancel it, does everyone still get paid? Who loses money here, or who makes money here? What would have happened if they just gassed it?
Yeah, so we go home. We get to go home because they call the competition off, and we go into, what do we have, 8-10 weeks back home in New Zealand and lockdown, and most probably 6 weeks of that 10 weeks we were on the phones trying to organize, what the season looks like moving forward, if it was to get going again, pay all the TV rights, the broadcasting rights, all those things. That was the conversation for 6 weeks, and it went round and round and round and round in circles, because the owners of the NRL wanted the game to go back on because they needed the money for them.
The TV deals. And then, exactly, and the pricing of the tickets as well. And this is, I've got a friend who's in this space pretty heavy. He was telling me the breakdown of how the revenues actually stacked, and it's insanely disproportionate to the TV rights deals that also go internationally. And if they don't basically play, they don't get the revenue, and then it comes on the unions or whatever else to do it. So there was this crazy sort of commercial tension that was happening in the background. As a player, I guess you go to yourself too of, if it's an option that this is your livelihood for you and your families, and you might not get a flipping cent, you're probably just like, dude, let's just play. How did it all end up? Did everyone end up kind of, I guess, happy and stoked and kind of felt it was fair, or you got your unions and shit? Like, how did it roll out?
Yeah, the thing for us was that we had to, for the game to get going, they needed us to move country. And that was much with another tough decision for a lot of the boys, because we weren't going to get full pay. And as of where we were, we had already been paid up to, I think, 80% of our pay, or something, or 50%, 52% of our pay for the year. So we were getting a pay cut on what was remaining of our pay, which was, I think the percentage went down to 20% of our last few months of pay. So you got a cut on top of that. So when our decision, we made a decision to leave, it was making sure that it was right for everyone in the group, that we got enough pay that we were happy to leave the country. And I think we all ended up agreeing that we got to a 20%, which was better than what they were trying to say. I think they were getting us for maybe 15. And I think if it was going to be that low, we were thinking, well, is it worth making the sacrifice, leaving our families behind, doing all those little things that no one in Australia have to do? Is it worth leaving them for that much money? We ended up coming to agreement, 20% of our last, whatever was left of the year pay, and we got on a plane and shipped over to Aussie for an unknown time.
What was the setup? Were you just staying in hotels? Do you have your own houses and shit? What was the
vibe?
So
we went to, obviously we had to do, I think they had isolation process over in Australia. So we went to Tamworth, and it's a town out in New South Wales somewhere, maybe 5 hours out of Newcastle somewhere. And we were very lucky. We got they locked off the whole hotel for us. So it was only us in there. And a couple of staff. So we were there for 17 days. But at the same time, there was a field literally across the road. It was less than 100 meters. So we had everything in there for us. So we couldn't leave the area. It was all barricaded off. So we trained for 2 weeks before the season started, and then we moved into some apartment living styles.
Yeah, cool. I'm getting given shit by Mike Jenkins, who's a good friend, who's also a flipping little tech deviant. Robett Hollis, yo, less business, more fanboy. Dude, Mike, I don't know rugby league. I don't even know all the positions. I'm sorry. Can you ask Adam, who is the greatest Kiwi league player of all time in his opinion, and is he a Queenslander or Blues fan? There you go, Mike. Stuff you. Okay, answer away, mate. So who is the greatest Kiwi league player of all time? Go.
Because I only started watching rugby league when I moved to Australia. I never saw all the older generation of Kiwi players play, but I've seen highlights and stuff like that. The guys that I did watch coming through would have been obviously Ruben Wiki, who is, in my opinion, most probably one of the greatest guys in New Zealand league player, just because of his toughness on the field, but then his humbleness off the field. And if I go into like the Queensland Blues, growing up as a kid, I was always a Blues fan, and a lot of Kiwi people are Blues fans. But then when I moved to Australia, because I signed with the Melbourne Storm when I was a kid, and they had a lot of Queenslanders on there, I quickly jumped ship to the Queenslanders, and I've been a Queenslander ever since. I've played Queensland under 17s. It's quite funny. I moved from New Zealand when I was a kid, and I was a Kiwi, but I got to play Queensland under 17s, and I took on the whole when they do all their chants, they yell out Queenslander when they're running through the tunnel, and I did that, and I look back and I think, what was I thinking when I was a kid? But it was fun times.
Rebecca says, "Hi, I would really be interested to know from a player's perspective what it was like to play a game in COVID without fans in the stadium. Did they bump up music, sound? What did they do? What was it like?"
Yeah, early on, they had the sounds going. They had the artificial fans, like the clapping in the background, the cheering. I don't know,
Is
like
it weird?
I guess when you play at a stadium like Suncourt Stadium, where it's always pretty full, it's 30,000 plus every game. And I played there when I was at the Broncos. It gives you a lift, and it's pretty fun playing in front of a packed out house. Didn't really notice it. Oh, I did notice it, but like you're so focused in the moment and playing the footy game that you don't really have a chance to even worry about the fans and stuff like that. But you definitely know the difference when it comes to having fans and not fans, because we had fans in the back half of the seasons, and it was so good to have them and see them all back again.
Yeah. I've been wondering about that, because I was thinking, the MC that's in there, that's sort of tuning it in the NBA things, they've been switching it. So each home game are different. They're changing the chants and the boos and how they do it. I'm wondering, does that make it a genuine effect on sport? But when you're in the zone, you're in the zone. Yeah. Scott Rewe asked a question. He said, was the NRL better when arms weren't required in the tackle, and who hit the hardest other than yourself? Clearly Scott knows the old little league. So was it better when arms weren't required?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest. Shoulder charge. So the shoulder charge he's obviously talking about, it was good if you could pull it off, but at the same time, I think as everyone got bigger and stronger, it became a little bit more dangerous, because there was less of a care factor for the opposition, because you could hit someone in the shoulder, but then it could slip up, hit them in the chin, and knock them out. And I think that's what they were trying to avoid at the end of the day. Back in the day, they didn't care. Oh, well, I don't know if they did care. I didn't play, but you were allowed to do a few things like that. But it was a little bit more controllable. I don't think people were as stronger, more mobile, more fitter, bigger. And again, with our game that they've changed the model to, it's a lot quicker. So there's a lot of fatigue. So there's less control on what you're trying to do. And again, what did he say? The hardest tackler, or hardest.
And then it was sorry, give me 1 sec. And then and who hit the hardest other than yourself?
I'm not a big hitter. Who hit the hardest? Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of smaller guys that have really good tackle technique that hit under the ball. Are the harder guys to run at. But we do enough video these days that the people that can hit hard, or the boys that hit under the ball, that you try and stay away from them. You just or the thing these days, because we're so athletic, and there's so much footage around individuals now, is just trying to have that awareness around what shot do they do hit off, if you're running at them, which way they like to go all the time, or use your feet to get into a harder position so they can't hit you. So, I don't know. There's a lot of smaller guys. There's a kid at the Roosters, Victor Radley. He's quite a good tackler. I don't know if I've been tackled by him, but I've seen a lot of his footages. Steve Matai, he's a Kiwi guy that was a pretty big hitter, but a lot of the times he got you from the side when you didn't see him coming, and cleaned a lot of people up in his days. And I think him and there's another guy down there at Manly that's still playing now, George Tafua. He's another guy. He comes from the wing and just cleans guys up at the back.
That old chestnut. The old Seki sat from the side.
Yeah.
Simon Wed wanted to go a little deeper on it. Here we go. How much racism did you face in the NRL, and how did it manifest itself?
Racism, yeah, it's obviously been around for a fair bit in most sports over here, and in rugby league. I personally didn't come across too much of it. I did hear a lot, but for me, if I heard something like that, I just turn around, and if I was on the bench, and just turn around and just say, "Come on, please, don't say that." And again, I've been around for a long time, so I've got a bit of a thicker skin. Yes, it shouldn't be in the game. And then of late, we've had a couple of other accusations or boys saying that they've got a bit of a racist slur against them. There's no room for it in our game, and they get put on the spot pretty quickly. But yeah, I didn't really come across too much in my time when I was playing. But I did hear some things. And for me, it's just about just saying, "Hey guys, there's no room for that here. Just keep it to yourself."
Yeah, I get it. Maybe the way to end racism within the league is just to keep no fans at the games. I'm sure that would be very sustainable.
Or if you say that, then maybe they'll stop.
Interesting here. Who is the most inspiring coach that you've ever worked with? Peter Butler.
As in inspiring, as in like what, speeches or person to play for?
Maybe someone that who you'd be most happy to die for going to battle.
I'd have to say, as I got older, would have to be Wayne Bennett, 72, still coaching. Really just a people's man, and a father figure to a lot of people. Just knew what to say at the right times. I got an opportunity to go go to Brisbane when I was in Sydney, and he became the coach. And as soon as I found that out, I put my hand up to go home, because I knew that he could get the best out of me. So he lets you be you, and just builds people around you just to back you up, and believes in your ability. So it helps you believe in yourself. And you don't want to let him down, so you'll go out to the field and make sure that everything you do, you don't do it properly, because you know that your coach is backing you. And he's one person that I still speak to these days about just life after football and life during football, about things like that.
Well, it's interesting. We had Victor Vito on the show earlier. It was last week or Monday or something, and he was just talking about the exact point of knowing who needed the pick-me-up when, like with the 2011-15 All Blacks team, who was doing the pieces and the energy of like what each person sort of brought to the table. But I know we're a little tap for your time. Last question here. I had some other questions, but these are pretty good. We've clearly got some solid egg ballers in the house. What is the next career move for you, my friend? You're freshly retired. You're in 4 days of forced relaxation with you, the wife, and 2 kids in a hotel room for 2 weeks. You wake up in 2 weeks' time. You're home. You're seeing your fam. What's next for you, my friend?
Work-wise, I've been lucky. When I moved to Sydney from Melbourne, because I never had family with me there. I had my parents, my mum, and my brothers and sisters all in Melbourne. But when I moved to Sydney, I personally made some goals and some sacrifices that would help me longevity-wise in the game, on and off the field. So obviously one of them was, not drinking till the end of the year. Trying to find do some study outside of rugby league to take my mind away from football. And then my wife was doing her own personal stuff as well. So I quickly jumped into uni in Sydney, and the end goal was to be a sports psych. For myself, I think the mind and how it all works is pretty interesting. And I've always been intrigued in how people think or how people think and how they react under a certain situation, especially in games. And then we do a lot of army camps coming through as kids and as rugby league players, and putting ourselves in situations that you're not comfortable with, and I like to see how people react to those situations. So my whole goal was to be a sports psych. If on the way I liked another path of psychology, then I was going to go that way. So I started a little bit of psychology in Sydney. I moved up to Brisbane, kept going with my psychology. Then I've come back to the Warriors, or moved to the Warriors, and kind of put that on the back burner. Not because I wanted to stop. It was just that the time I had in Sydney and Brisbane wasn't exactly the same in the Warriors, and we were always traveling. Our days off, different days off, and trying to get into uni down here was a lot more difficult. So COVID comes around, and they say that we might not have a job. So my wife and I jumped online, and at the moment doing a bachelor in applied management, just because I need to, and I'm interested in that kind of area where it becomes management and knowing yourself and all those kind of things first before you can coach other people or talk to other people. I applied for the police.
Damn.
So I just, again, for me, it's about giving back to people. I love working in communities. I'm from the far north, so if I can help a little Maori boy up there chase a dream, or give him a little bit of motivation, or take him off the street, then I'd be there in a heartbeat to try and help them. So my whole drive is to, ultimately I'd love to open up an academy halfway between Whangarei and the north, where not only is it a sports academy, but academy for everything, life in general, giving them motivation, or giving them something that's going to help them get off the street, or give them a bit of motivation to drive and chase a dream. So I'd be most probably in that space. The coaching space, I'd love to work with some young development players that are striving to play NRL. I'd love to have a couple of boys there, just working with them as much as I can to try and, once they get into get to preseason, become an NRL player, they're already pushing or challenging players in front of them. So I've got a lot of things I want to do, and there's some steps in place to try and get that done. So that's me. There's so much, and I think at the end of the day, it's all about giving back to, the sport, giving back to these kids that I was once them, where I felt that when I didn't have the same help when I was coming through. I just kind of I guess the toughest find their way through it. If you can get through it, if you don't, then you fall out the back. So I just want to be able to help those guys that are doing it tough, that have dreams, that can't afford it, that can't get to trainings or get to places because they're too far up north. And if I can put something in halfway where they can make it there, then I'm happy to help.
Dude, that's mega, man. I'm also be scared as shit if you're a psychologist and a police officer. That's a dangerous combo. Peter says shot. Peter says shot, and then Peter says shot, and the finals need something. Brothers, it's been awesome, man. I really appreciate the chat, and it's cool. Clearly your headspace is in a pretty sweet spot for what you do next. Yeah. And just the reality is, you have a platform now, and that platform that you've built over the last 15 years of credibility and all that hard work is now going to last you out for the legacy game of giving back to others, which I think is super important and really cool. So, and props to you as well. For a lot of athletes don't see what's next. They wake up and go, now what? Clearly your headspace is seeing where it's going to go to. So full props and kudos to you, man. Like putting you, it's a long career, and I'll see you when you're 50 after you paid your 15 years back to your wife for making her follow your ass around for the last flipping decade and a half. And then when you get out of lockdown, let me know where you take her for a nice dinner out. Yeah. French cafe, here you come.
My man, bro. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Shachi, talk to you soon, bro.
Cheers, brother.
Peace. That was bro Adam Blair. Clearly owes his wife quite a lot to deal with the 15 years on the show. I'll give him some claps. Flipping epic. Damn, 15 years in the game. It's mega. All right, next up, 1 minute pitch. I'm really excited. I know who this human is. We're good friends. He's won. Hello, Ben Rose.
Hello. How you going?
Oh, you get claps to come on in. How are you, buddy?
Appreciate that.
Now,
yeah, good, man. How are you?
I know who you are. I know what the grower is. I know exactly what you do, but the others don't. So I would like to give you your 1 minute pitch. I'll give it a little timer. Where are you right now?
I am right now in my kitchen, desperately hoping that my dogs don't make a lot of noise.
You're rolling the dice. All right.
Yep, correct.
I know that feeling. Timer, 1 minute. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Rose, 1 minute pitch. 3, 2, 1, go.
So sales and marketing, really, really important. Everyone knows that they need revenues. If you don't have revenue, then you don't have a business. But the problem is super complicated, really hard to know what you should do instead of what you could do. There's loads of people out there telling you that what they do is exactly what you need. But the problem is if you go to a fishmonger and ask what to have for dinner, the answer is invariably going to be fish. So what we do is we work with our clients to put together a plan, work out what is going to make a difference to them and grow their sales. And then we pull together a team of experts we've got a big network of to deliver it for them. So we don't just come in and give them an idea, we actually execute it for them. And it's all about growing their sales. That's it.
Mate, that was only 45 seconds. Last week's was 51. That was 45. So you only need 45. Boom, done. Well done. Well done.
Thanks, man.
That was good.
Well, it's simple. It doesn't need to be hard, right?
No. How do you describe the growery? Is it a sales agency? Is it a sales growth? What do you call it?
We're a sales growth partner. And partner's really important because we're not just in there to flog you something and bugger off. We're there for the long haul.
Are you opening up options for potential equity in future businesses that you work with?
Yeah, we've been approached about some of that. We are having a look at that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Got a friend who's in the consultancy space pretty heavy, and he's been talking about there's a lot of long-term relationship opportunities by taking existing parties that they work with and then taking equity pools on both and basically putting them in the same room to help grow it in efficiency. So I'm sure there's a whole bunch happening in that space as well. I like your t-shirt. Very cool.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
That's cool.
You've got to have a bit of merch, haven't you?
Just because. Yeah. This has been cool. We'll need to catch up soon, man. I hope you're well. Everything's ripping away and charging on for you.
Yeah, doing all right. But business is tough, but we're out there, we're doing it, we're knocking on doors, and so far we got a business. So that it's just all about people knowing that there is an option to help them.
All right. So if people want to go to, where can they go? What can they do? Feel free to plug your website now.
You're a good man. They should go to www.thegrowery.co.nz, or if they're in New Zealand, they can call on 027 Growery.
Oh, snap. He's added the 027. I know someone else is a personal. It makes it easy. 027 Growery. So that's solid. Done.
Yeah.
As long as and that's how you spell it right there. I love your work, brother. Be good. I'll give you some claps.
Good man. Catch ya.
Talk soon.
Cheers.
Bye. Oh, wait. Wait. You're coming back. No, wait. I pushed it too soon. I needed to introduce it. There's Ben Rose, absolute legend. Ladies and gentlemen, Holly Bennett. There you go. Hi, Holly. Oh, it's good to see you.
Kia ora, atu Māori, good morning.
Morena. Sorry, I accidentally jumped you into it too soon.
That was great. I'm glad I was ready and I wasn't just like looking around.
Okay. Just quick recap. I really like Adam Blair. He is a flippin' good human. That was awesome.
He's a really good human. Mad props to his wahine though, because that was one of the things that he did, I think, on LinkedIn a couple of days ago that I saw, and he just gave her mad awhi, like all his aroha, and called her his queen, and I was like, yeah, that's the one. He knows where it's at.
He's got some brownie points to make up, like boosting around for 15 years and wifey coming with you. It's like, it's her time to shine now. Know your flip and roll.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay.
Absolutely.
Holly Bennett.
And then your next guest,
Yes.
Ben, I haven't responded to an email he sent me, so I apologize, Ben, if you're watching. And I will respond to you today.
There you go. I have found with mine is I'll just try and batch load because I can't be reactionary to it. And when anyone that knows, they just ring or text me and I'm 100% there every single time, every single day. It becomes a wave of gnarliness. So always try and keep that thing. Politics.
Yes.
This week in politics. What would you like to talk about, Holly Bennett?
There's a few things.
Okay.
So I guess the 3 priority issues are 1, the leaders' debate. 2,
Round 2.
A policy announcement made by 2 is a policy announcement made by Maori Party that I want to touch on, and 3, continuing our kōrero from last wiki, which was around this freedom of speech stuff. So I've had a little bit of a deeper dive, so we can touch on that at the end if you want.
Also, I would like to add a 4th little mini agenda is Axe SME plan, which I saw him post on LinkedIn with a couple of pretty interesting things as well to help small businesses, which I thought was very cool. At least something was documented specifically with what they could do where. So, leaders debate number 1. You didn't watch it because you went out for a nice dinner and you were supporting the local hospitality industry by buying pasta somewhere. Great. Yeah. Leadership debate number 2. Judith, Jacinda, who won? Go.
Well, I watched it, so at least I am able to be able to give some good commentary on it. I thought that both of them were firing on all cylinders. I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the wit and the banter that both our major party leaders have and bring. I thought that Patty did a great job, as usual, to keep the conversation going, because that's one of the hardest parts as a moderator, right? Especially in live TV, is that you've got to keep things moving. There was a good discussion, not too many new things. The one thing that did bother me about the debate was referencing the Labour leader as dear. I don't like that. It doesn't sit well with me because often in rooms, I just know what it feels like to be almost minimized through the use of language, despite the role that I hold. And so that sort of sat uncomfortably with me, and I hope that maybe we don't see a continuation of that. It could be a political tactic. I mean, I imagine it probably is, but that is one thing that I picked up on that I didn't like.
And was this Judith calling Jacinda dear?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I get it. Just kind of like, okay, dear, you just sit down in the corner and just do your thing, let the adults talk type of a vibe.
Yeah.
Dismissive, demeaning thing. Words have power. Whoever said sticks and stones break my bones is full of shit, because words actually do hurt.
Absolutely. And I don't imagine it. I mean, I see the Labour leader as someone who can brush that off, and I don't think it would hurt her in the slightest. But I don't think it's becoming for our political leaders. I don't know if you watched the shit show that was the US presidential debate, but I would hate to see our politics go down to that. It's just not really what I'm interested in, and I think that's a huge indictment on that country and who they have as their options.
No comment. Maori Party announcement that you would like to talk about. Maori Party all going to the Maori roll. What's the buzz?
That's the one. So Maori Party has released many policies this election. I don't want to say that they're virtue signaling, but many of them I think that society and community are doing themselves. For example, calling New Zealand Aotearoa, like lots of people I know call it Aotearoa or Aotearoa New Zealand. And that's a good thing. I don't know if we need to just force everyone to do it. It's happening naturally. One of the things that they've announced is, moving everyone of Māori descent, so it's everyone who's whakapapa, so like you, me, to the Māori role. And when we talk about self-determination, that's all about making decisions for ourselves. And I'm fundamentally against a political party having that as a policy to push us onto the Māori role. Now, I've been on both general and Māori, and I made the decision when it was last open to move back to the general. People will ask why. Well, every single political party, apart from Labour, had a Māori leader, and Labour had a Māori deputy leader. And I thought, that's really all I need to see. We're there, and we're there at the top. And so I moved myself to general.
Is it the fact of you don't like a government forcing you to only have a say within a certain realm, that you should have that? Is it the fact that they're trying to take away choice for your voice?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Give me that choice. Okay. It's my vote. It's not yours. Like, don't tell me that I can and can't. I think the smarter thing, if they wanted to go down that track, is make it easier to move. That because at the moment you can only move every 3 years. I'm not too sure. Well, why don't you just take that inhibitor away and make it you can move at any time? Yeah, sure, it creates more effort for the Electoral Commission, but if we actually want to look at how we can make it about people making their own decisions, make it easier for them to move.
Forced segregation, to that point, could almost start to bring up some different conjurings of, race being put in a bucket by force. I'm not to go back to Nazi Germany with Jews and the shoulders, things on the shoulder or whatever, but forcing race to take away options, I'm sure probably won't maybe go down very well with a bunch of people. I could probably say, and there's obviously probably a counter argument to it for a whole bunch of probably different reasons, which it'd be interesting. So who runs the Māori Party now?
John Tamahere and Debbie Debbie Packer. Yeah.
It'd be interesting. I should try and get him on the show, have a chat.
Ask him.
Free speech.
Ask him. Absolutely. Yeah. If you ask him, ask JT why. Why do we all need to move on? Because I'm more than capable of exercising my vote on the general role without needing to be forced to move to the Māori role.
It's a good question. Obviously, I'm going straight from idea to execution. I'm putting down.
I love it. Good.
JTQ Māori Party. Cool.
And I say to him, Mark Bennett's daughter would like to know why.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Free speech. Hit me.
Yes. Okay, so I had a look into, we brought this up last week, and we were going to have this as a continuing talking point. So I did my research, did a little digging. From what I can see is that it's all around hate speech. I think it spurred out of the Christchurch massacre, and that the Labour Party decided that we needed to do something about hate speech, especially in regards to religion and that kind of realm. Now, I know that they tried to do this while they were in government, and it was New Zealand First that put a stop to this because they couldn't get agreement on how you do change the policy. So now it is Labour's continuing this to be a platform change that they're going to do. And I haven't seen anything specifically written down. So it's obviously just a continuation of their party position. And it's just an important thing that I think that we need to continue to keep talking about, because it's not to say that we let people get away with saying offensive things. It's about whether or not the state has the role to persecute us for our opinions.
It's a slippery slope, because for years people have even been, they've lost jobs for things they've said on Facebook groups. There's been, a whole bunch of stuff that's happened on and on and on. I think in 2020, of the year of everything being cancelled for certain things, of one thing you did 20 years ago, cancelled, everything's cancelled. I hope that it finds its balanced way into the middle to realize that every single person who has some type of platform anywhere is not going to be perfect. They will do dumb shit. They will say dumb shit. Dumb things will happen. It will be recorded. I just can't wait till 2050 when the president is going to have Snapchat DMs from 2018, which are going to get called out in Snapchat, but everyone's going to have the same thing. So I hope that over time, everyone realizes that everyone is not actually perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it's just another watch this space. I'll see if there's any more rhetoric on it next week. I think I couldn't find any new articles this week about it. It was sort of like a one-shot wonder in the media. But we'll just watch the space, because that is something that should we get a similar government returned after 17th of October, they will look to make changes to the way, basically our freedoms around speech.
Well, I think it's going to get amplified as well because the battle between platforms to do it and then governments to do it, usually there's a disconnect between the speed of execution from both sides as well, which will be very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Holly Bennett, John Tamahini, I will be tricking his ass down to ask him about that question and say, well, Mark Bennett's daughter asked me to ask you. But yeah, I know Katni, so I think it might hopefully be possible. It'd just be very interesting. Enjoy the rest of your the day and the week and all that comes with it. Thanks again, Holly. Love your work.
Ka kite. Have a good day.
Adios.
Bye.
See ya. Holly Bennett, flipping champion. Love the politics. Good little vent there. You wonder if it ruffles some feathers. Young, powerful wahine coming up and saying, "Don't force me into the Maori role." I get that. I'll be very interested to see that. 1 minute pitch. I'm actually really excited for this quick little 1 minute pitch. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Brigman. G'day, mate.
G'day, mate. How are you? It's great to see you. It was fabulous to see Holly. I haven't seen her, obviously, since I haven't been able to get into New Zealand for probably a year, but we've kept in touch. She's great.
There you go. 1 minute pitch. We are friends. I know you, but others may don't. So we get to do a little 1 minute pitch for what you're doing. You ready to rumble?
I'm ready to rumble. You have the timer.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hit me.
Okay. Well, I'm Mark Bregman. I am obviously not a Kiwi. I live here in the San Francisco Bay Area, but I have spent a lot of time in New Zealand, and I've had a connection to New Zealand for over 20 some years. In the late 90s, I was there for the America's Cup at the time, and I purchased a piece of property down in Central Otago, a part of a vineyard, and that gave me an excuse to come and visit quite often. And I've kept track of what's been going on down there. So starting a few years ago, I decided to do two things. Well, one thing 2 years ago and another thing more recently. The thing I started on about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, was focusing on venture investment in early stage New Zealand startups that are planning to come to the US market. I perceived a need for help, support, network connection, et cetera, for those startups that originate in New Zealand, but which want to come to the US market. And with one foot kind of in New Zealand and one here in the US, I thought I could help them. And then I also found that there was obviously, as many people know, a shortage of capital for those early stage companies. So I wanted to help them. Is that my 1 minute timer?
That was your 1 minute timer. But Mark, we forgot something very important. What is the name of your company?
QUIDNETVENTURES. And just as a quick, I'll overstep my bounds, kind of like our president does when he has a time limit, but I don't mean it the same way. Quidnet is a town in New Zealand, and in Nantucket. Nantucket's an island off the coast of Massachusetts. In the mid-1800s, it was the wealthiest city in the United States because of the whale oil industry. And at that time, Nantucket town, the main town, is where all the ships came in. It was kind of a stinky place, not very nice, a lot of smelly oil and dirty boats. The retired sea captains would live on the other side of the island in Sconset or Quidnet. And the young up-and-coming sailing captains would go to Quidnet to seek support, venture investment from these captains. And they were the first venture capitalists in the world. Where did those boats go when they left Nantucket? Well, they sailed south around South America, and their first port of call frequently was in New Zealand. So they brought a lot of that connection to what was then Auckland, primarily, and they often picked up crew, in fact, including many Maori. And so even in the mid-1800s, there were Maori who had come back after sailing voyages to the United States and were in Nantucket. So I thought that was a good name to connect U.S. capital and New Zealand entrepreneurs.
QuidnetVentures.com?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
QuidnetVentures.com. Mark, love your work, brother. We'll have to catch up soon for a yarn and a socially distanced whiskey.
Absolutely.
I'll love your work, brother. See you soon.
Take care. Thank you.
Later, bro. Mark Brigman, good bastard here in San Fran. We get international guests. This is very cool. We get people from all over. We've had Australia, we've had Canada, we've had America, obviously New Zealand. And that gets us rolling. Quidnet Ventures, investing in early stage startups from New Zealand to try and get them to USA. If you're a tech startup or you're something, check them out. And the bro Mark will be probably more than happy to have a chat with you. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, claps are ready. one and only Cassie Roma. How are you, Cassie?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Okay. So I've really enjoyed the banter today. I've been deceptively surprised, and I'm quite pumped. So I'm feeling pretty good. How are you?
It's been a good show. I didn't know much about rugby league or the Warriors, or gosh, I hope people don't unfollow after that. But I didn't know much either. And what a conversation, and talking about the things that people give up for their passions and the way that families support others. And it takes a village, it takes a community, it takes a whānau to be successful and make it through life.
I also don't know much about rugby league. I interviewed a former All Black on Monday, and I don't even know what position he played. So I had to ask him.
I watched that interview, and I didn't know either.
I was like, oh, okay, cool. No, but I think it was funny because we chatted after we connected a little bit, and he was just saying it's really refreshing just not talking about the thing that all I do is talk about my entire life. And I'm coming from the side of like, I know nothing about how the shit works, so let's just have a conversation. So it was cool. Yeah, very cool. Anyway, you were out at Mission Bay last week with Anika. You went a little water paddle boarding.
Yeah. You can hear us today, right?
I can hear you. No, that's fine. So what's bubbling in your world? What's the biggest thing? What's the thing that matters most for Cassie Roma this week?
Well, what matters most is we're on another beach today, actually, just outside my front door. So we're on Waiheke this week.
Oh.
Yeah, my wife and I. So she's sitting outside waiting very patiently. But this week, it was interesting listening. I love listening to you and Holly. I love her laugh. Oh my God, she gets me going on a Friday. Just energy, right? And passion. But then when she speaks, you're like, whoa, she is one smart cookie. Wow. Yeah. I thought it was interesting what you guys were talking about around the Privacy Act and freedom of speech and all of those kinds of things, because you're 100% right with like president with a Snapchat, 10 years, all of those things we're going to be talking about.
We're going to have dick pics of a president or prime minister within 20 years, and the world's going to see his dick. 100% will happen.
They have those of the current fella. You know that. Nobody wants to see it, though. Nobody wants to see it. We digress. We digress. I wanted to talk a little bit more. So I was thinking about, first I want to talk about creativity and how important it is for solutioneering and bringing out problems in business. But then I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about freedom of speech and who we are at work. And so I completely changed. So cross everything off of your list, robett, because I was thinking about, great. Let's talk about the importance of what are the boundaries? And I'd like to maybe flip it and ask you the question. So when we go to work, most of us are somebody who we aren't when we're at home, or vice versa. You and I are very close, I think, to who we are, regardless of which door we walk into, which room we sit in. Where do you find the tug or the boundary for you from robett who's at home and robett who's at work?
Super simple. I made the conscious decision more than 10 years ago, or actually no, it was after I had my first daughter, really was publicly no one will see my children, and probably my wife and my inner circle. No one knows who I'm talking to on a daily basis. No one will see publicly who I'm physically with. And I've only ever put up 2 things publicly which have shown who's in my circle, and that will be it, probably. Yeah. Because I feel that the lines merge where I feel, for me, it's a thing of I wouldn't want to feel that I'm taking away the visibility or privacy from someone close to me, that because they're close to me, I expose their world for others that don't necessarily know them. I think that's a very, so for me, it's kind of like basically my inner circle, friends and family you won't see and you won't know about, and that's it. And then everything else, how I am as a person, I think is exactly the same. I'm like, talk the same shit, dress the same thing, do the same stuff. And I do feel that it's a superpower, because all of the shit that bring your whole self to work and all this, like, be your true self and all this shit, what it's actually is, it's opening up, it feels like, to empower people to genuinely just be flat and treat the top the same as the bottom, left the same as the right, and roll and know that that's okay in business. But everyone has these shells, which they usually do. So to answer it would be, who I am flat, what others see, totally line in the sand, and people don't know that, which is why it starts morphing and gets a bit weird of like what's perception, what's reality, and that's a big issue, I think, of what's happened with the life is not your Instagram stream.
Yes.
You know, and I think people are starting to learn that and really realize that that's not necessarily the realities of how the world works. Does that make sense?
Totally. It's almost twofold. So you've got strong boundaries around your personal life, especially because of the kind of work that you do and the personal brand that you've got and how open you are and out there in the ether. But then also when you go to work, you know, when you and I sit down for a coffee or a soda or whatever it's going to be, you are who you are. I know that you and I could have either the deepest conversation that I've ever had on the first time meeting a human being, or we could just giggle, right?
Yeah.
And I like that about you. But you said something there that really resonated because, you know, for me, for 2 decades, I've had the bring your whole self to work spiel. And it's hard for me because it's not something that's actually readily doable for most people. And I guess that's where the crux of the question is, and maybe that's where you can offer the tips too, is how do you make that decision to walk into a room and be you, regardless of where you are? Because a lot of the time we're taught, wear the mask, nothing's flat. There's a propriety, there's a way we act between, you know, the boss and the boss's boss and the boss's boss. I've never fallen for that. You've never fallen for that. But what are your tips for folks who maybe are struggling with that?
I started realizing it was a thing where people would be a chameleon at work, but then after the 4th beer at Sale Street, just start being them. And I've got one friend in particular who's got public profile, and he is totally different publicly than he is privately. And it sucks because he feels trapped by this public stigma of who he needs to feel he needs to be for others, as if he's on show when he's in public. And weirdly enough, it's more of a liability than an asset, because it's like you need to know when to be on show. And I feel that, for me anyway, net, I feel I've won if I can just do me and be me, because I'd rather lose opportunities or relationships, whatever, organically being me, than fake something I'm not to try and have a connection that's not the same as others. And I know it's a bit of a different thing. The reason why I think people do that is you can't scale. It almost feels like you can't have a scalable, sustainable, individualistic corporation if everyone's genuinely been them. Like, I don't even know a spot where, you know, like I would have stuff that would work for me if we'd be like 18 years old and be like, nah, Robett, that shit's whack. It needs to be this. And I'd be like, you reckon? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, stuff it. You're probably right. I'm wrong. You're right. Let's do it. Next. And hierarchy, that shit, like, could you imagine? And I've been in rooms where a junior has not said something in front of the CEO. The second the CEO walks out, all of a sudden the whole conversation changes just because the power left the room. So there is something that's going to be there. What I do feel is if leadership can make things flat, so if with the energy, it changes the dynamic of the conversation because there is no threat to the opinion. And as long as, I think, for me anyway, if those close to you know that all you give a shit about is the output, regardless of how you get there and who's got the best idea, who gives a shit? Like, I genuinely don't care, because I'm about the thing. And if they know that, then they are more likely to speak up and have a say and throw in their 2 cents and know that it's not going to be like, that's stupid, because half the shit I say is stupid usually. So I would actually say it's leadership empowering flatness. 100%. And apart from that, it's going to be a bunch of like, tick the box bullshit, and you get to see it in organizations. I mean, shit, you've seen it, but I know that's my 2 cents. This is supposed to be about you, but for me, I just know that I think long game, I have won, and I will continue to win for winning and losing being me, than faking being someone I'm not for a fake win, because that will give 100%. Me regret. And I'm like, stuff that shit. I don't care who's on this thing. If it's you or a prime minister or president or flipping someone homeless, it's flat. Don't give a shit. Right. And I think people know that as well, which is powerful.
I think so too. And the most powerful thing that you said there was empowerment, because some of the best places I've worked have been for leaders who are either cognizant of the fact that there needs to be a shift in corporate culture from that empowerment perspective, or people who just walk through the world and go, actually, I hired you to do this just because I make more money or I have a bigger title. that doesn't mean I'm right all the time. That's always how I've approached leadership as well. And I know that some of the time too, I was having a conversation with a fellow I worked with before we ran into at a pub here on Waiheke yesterday. And we were talking about the way that you work and the way that most people walk through the world is going like, I know my role, I know my lane, I know where I'm going, I know who I should talk to, I know who I shouldn't talk to, I know who I should kind of push down a peg, I know who I should, whose ass I should kiss. But he and I are very similar in that we kind of walk through the world and go, actually, exactly what you just said. What's the output? How do we get there? What's the best way to empower and lift others? And I just love the power in that.
But I don't feel in New Zealand, like I feel that Steve Yurkovich does it with some of the way he does his shit on social. I think Craig Hudson does it with the way he talks about certain things. And I feel that it's not that vulnerability is the superpower, but like humanness is timeless, right?
And so is visibility. It's so is visibility. For a lot of CEOs and for a lot of leaders, it's a scary thing putting yourself out there, right? Because it means that people are going to pick you to shreds. They're going to, if you put yourself out on social media these days, people will tear you to shreds and find out that you're imperfect. And Lord forbid somebody finds out a CEO is imperfect. I love Steve and the work that he does. He's just a dude. A great that you mentioned his name, right?
It's people. But I feel that in New Zealand, more leaders need to realize that it's okay to show the imperfections of life, the polished profile pic of perfection and sound bites and bullshit. That's why I think, like actual conversations, you can't craft and curate into snippets that will work for a soundbite for a TV segment or whatever.
That's right.
People know that if you're a human and real, it's, and that's why, even from that mental health awareness thing last week, everyone's got their own shit. The bit where I kind of feel of it is I think New Zealand businesses in general, whatever, would be so much more front-footed if they had more of the Eminem approach in 8 Mile. I've talked about it a couple of times of, at the end of 8 Mile, he battles a dude.
Yep.
How does he win? He wins because he destroys himself publicly first in front of the dude, takes away all the other person's ammunition. The other guy can't say shit, and he wins. He gets the dub.
Right.
So I just feel, well, if I front foot all my shit, like I'm horrible at processes and systems and I'm super loose and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, cool, that's me. All right, cool. Now I've taken away all that shit from you. You can't say shit. We're on to the next. And then they already know that. It's not like they've got ammo because you've already said it. I think if leaders just show the ammunition that others could have to show that they're not perfect, gives them more power than trying to act like you're good at all of it when you're not. And the day is going to come when they will stuff up and I will stuff up and you will stuff up and everyone do it. Yep. The difference is everyone will know when that day comes that your intent was right, but you stuffed up, not you're perfect and you gypped everyone like a Tiger Woods. That's the difference.
Well, how boring is perfect? I mean, we could talk about this forever, but I think it's so important when somebody can mess up, show their mess up. If you have to apologize for it, move forward. Like Robett, I mess up daily, weekly, hourly, minute by minute. I live my life as far as screwing up, but that's where we learn the most. It's like when you're lifting weights, you got to tear down a bit of muscle to build it up. And I think that's the beautiful thing about leadership too. I see it more and more in New Zealand, but there's still that fear. And I think you mentioned it right at the beginning of this segment around that curation of self, that perfectly curated Instagram versus the not. And I think you beat me on the taking all of the apps off your phone game, because let me tell you, I've had to put them back on for work.
Oh, really?
And it's, well, because I'm creating right into channel for a few clients right now.
Got it.
And it sucks you back in. So I've been sucked back in and I'm just ready to go back out, because I felt for those weeks where I had no social media on my phone, wow, what a bunch of clarity. I got my work done faster. My ideas were stronger. My productivity was more. And I'm finding myself getting sucked back into that vortex of curation. And after that presidential debate, it was not good for the blood pressure.
Oh, I can imagine. No, I tweaked one thing in terms of admin stuff this week is usually I'll color code down to 15-minute increments of everything. I'm pretty insane. And then with what I'm doing, where, blah, blah. And what I actually did this week is I cancelled everything off my entire calendar, greenlit everything. And the only thing I booked in for this week was any set meetings plus this, and everything else is blank. And then I've just been trying to see if it's blank and I have free time, where I actually put my energy to see what gets done. I'm just doing a little test on myself of, am I potentially more productive if I go by feel with the key things I need across the different ventures, or if it's structured and calendared to the exact minute, what.
I'm curious to see how you find that, because I'm very much, if I have to, I'll put everything into the calendar. But I've found since starting kind of my own journey now, yesterday was 7 months in, leaving that blank space. Wow, it's just so freeing. And I found there's more impassionment and more inspiration in having a bit of free time.
The other little bit side note, which I thought I'd share with you, is I feel that the shows get into a point where I think we could try for gnarlier topical guests to let them go long form with actual chat.
Totes.
And I think it could be a good thing, because what's become very clear is there's a massive disconnect in the New Zealand media anyway between the perception of what all these different people that I talk to have versus the feedback that comes back after they actually have just a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
So I think New Zealand leadership needs it. I feel more of the conversation needs it, and talking about more things that aren't. So that's could be where potentially we go to as well.
Just Kiwis in general, right? Because you can Google leadership tips, you can Google hacks, you can take courses, you can go on like retreats. What you cannot pay for, what you cannot Google, is exactly what we're doing right now. Our conversations that flow, and where you or I find a moment of insight or passion, where we go, actually, I went through this thing, it was really hard. Here's what I learned coming out the other end of it. And look, imperfection looks like this. And this is, a confident, well-spoken human being who is just going to keep going, because life is more than your title. It's more than your job. It's more than the sport you play. I think it's so important you have these conversations.
Yeah, I do think it's clearly a thing. I love your work, Cassie. Have you gone for your run today? Waiheke run? Have you gone for a little Waiheke run?
Well, I don't think it's a good idea to run on days where you're planning to drink wine. So
just go run to
run to the vineyard.
Run to the vineyard. Have fun out there for the weekend. I hope it goes okay for you, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, my friend. It sounds good. Take care over there in Cali.
I love our banter. Love your work, Cassie.
You too. Right back at you.
See you soon. You get some claps. Such a good human. Cassie Roma. Good banters. Flipped it on me a little. I was trying to, we're going to talk about media and some other shit, but, you go down to some different rabbit holes, which is cool. Very cool show today, team. There you go. A little music, little outro music to tone off the rest of the day. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Adam Blair, Vodafone Warrior, flippin' good bastard. What a good dude. Really impressive to see such a big career that he's been on, obviously, for the last 15 years, now transitioning to, life after sport. What happens for him for life after sport? Where does he go to? What does he do? Doesn't have training every day, doesn't have all sorts of other shit going on. So that's cool. Big thanks to our guests. We had Ben Rose, 1 Minute Pitch. We also had Mark Bregman, 1 Minute Pitch, Quident Adventures. You can check out those, thegrowery.co.nz, quidentadventures.com, and then Holly Bennett from HSB Consulting.nz, and also Cassie Roma from CR & Co. Very cool. Big thanks to sponsors today. Sponsors, plugs for other different things. Brightfire.co.nz, bunch of business education and events, and also stream through switch.stream. If you're a business, want to do some live streaming stuff, jump in the mix and check that out. I'm feeling good about the show. I do feel I've done the math. This is episode 258. So I clearly like this. I clearly enjoy, keep learning. If you've got a guest or someone who you think you'd like to have on the show, feel free to track me down and do an introduction. If it's something topical and relevant or something where we can get some substance out of it with a good, solid chat, I think that would be good. I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy, bringing more content to others through the chats as well. So have a good day, team. Enjoy the rest of it. Be good, do good, and I'll see you soon. Adios, team. Peace.